Okay, anyone want to start us off on the supernova discussion? Let me just, one second. Monsi. Yes.
Can I just ask my question to Dave, even though I have a PhD?
Thank you.
Okay. Dave, on 21 AEFX that you showed, you had this early signature and you said it's not consistent with a companion shock, but that phase space is so large. Is there no part of that phase space in which it could be a companion? I mean, what is it then, right? I mean, there are very few of these that show this sort of early access that's not just explained easily by nickel distribution.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You know, I'm trying to be fair that some components of that light curve are consistent with what you expect from these models of ejecta interaction, but some parts aren't. And it's the UV. Now, it could be something like UV line blanketing or something. There are good physical reasons why there could be that UV deficit there. What we really need is very early UV spectroscopy of one of these type 1As with a early bump. Only HST could do this. Only HST could do this for now. Maybe in the future, UVEX could do it. Yeah. But this is, okay, now you're getting me on my soapbox. You know, HST will not be around for much longer. There are very limited, you know, disruptive TOOs on HST. It really should be doing these kind of things. You know, we are doing this with type 2s a bit, getting very early UV spectra, because this is the way, you know, until UVAX, this is the only way to get them. Yeah.
There's another question in the chat, I'm assuming from Sam Wyatt based on the username. Is what are you finding that observatories are lacking when trying to get this extreme early high cadence data? What do you suggest?
I should not be the only one talking. Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyone have ideas on, like, if I have an observatory, right, what kind of infrastructure would I need to?
So does Sam mean that, you know, getting multiple spectra the same night, or does he mean just combining the current transient surveys to kind of get an effective very high cadence?
Assuming it's the second one.
Well, that I think people are doing now. There's some limit to it, but we are always and I'm sure others are too, ingesting other people's non-detections and detections along with our own, and, you know, combining them together to get the earliest constraints that we can.
Yeah. Esley?
So I think one thing that we could think about is communication. I feel like maybe that's a theme of this, which is that as we push things to higher cadence and shorter timelines, you know, saying I got a spectrum, but no one knows I got a spectrum. And even if I put it on TNS, you know, within a day, there's a lot of follow-up that was either missed or potentially duplicated. And so I think that's something that I don't have necessarily an answer, but because we're all doing disparate programs and throwing things into the queue without talking to each other, I think that there can be some duplication there or missed opportunities.
Is there something other than the TNS, like going back to Sander's point of, like, can we just put everything on the TNS?
So I think, but the TNS, you are uploading something after you've taken, like, I'm almost thinking like a treasure map for supernova or for LSST follow-up or something where, like, you say, I have submitted to the Gemini Q observations for this, but then there also needs to be some form of like data sharing within that.
Like Eric.
So my understanding is the TNS is very aggressively against even galactic transients, let alone variable stars. So I don't think that's the answer. I feel like I hear Rob Siemens' voice in my head saying, View Event thought of this 2 decades ago. And I think it's true that, you know, we want some kind of a standard or protocol that lets people report out classifications, even without the spectrum. Just, you know, we took a spectrum, and, you know, I think the brokers are a great place for that sort of information to land.
Mhm.
And some of our tool motivated colleagues might be interested in sort of defining what that looks like in this decade.
Gotham?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the easiest ways to send out communication now, particularly when it's not necessarily the most compelling thing, but you want a record of something having happened and some automatic service to track that, is just send a Kafka message, right? That's kind of what it's there for. And we can archive those, we can search those, we can index those and update a web page. Even if it's not a 1A and or any kind of supernovae, and just say, well, something exists and here's the person to talk to. Or if it really is a spectrum that you're not sure if anybody is ever going to want, including your own group. For example, our Hermes service can actually accept full uploaded spectras. We have a data store connected to it, and we'd be perfectly happy to have your spectra. We just store it in the cloud.
And I think that also addresses the second point on like cross-matching, because it would work for any wavelength. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on Sam's comment. Is there anything in the archives, data, features, services that would be helpful for getting things quicker in that sense?
Any? Yeah, apparently. Absolutely.
I feel like in many cases we're like pipeline and automated data reduction limited. I'm thinking maybe especially from the spectroscopic standpoint. And so I think that's something that as a community, we're starting to think about the need to invest in. Like you don't just build an instrument, you also need to build a pipeline and a plan to maintain that pipeline. And so I just want to like encourage the community to make that a priority when we're approving proposals and stuff like that.
We just need a few more courtesies. Yeah. Did you have a question, Joey? No.
Can I ask a different one?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So a couple of talks mentioned medium resolution spectra for sort of going beyond classification to some of the physics, like the really cool 40 kilometers per second red supergiant when that disappeared. I was wondering if there were other ideas, and I asked this because I'm currently working on building an instrument for Keck, which would be, rapid response and sort of this R of 18 to 20,000. It's designed for time domain and everything from 0.3 to 2.5 micron. So I know what we can do at low resolution. Usually things are high velocity, but I'd love to hear more ideas for medium resolution, right? 18 to 20,000 R, like this red supergenuine case, which is very cool. Oh, Sky.
I have one aspect there is not that I'm putting any stock, and I don't want anybody to put any stock in aligning the equivalent width of Na1, sodium 1D to reddening, but at least in a qualitative sense, getting sodium D profiles gives you a sense of the amount of host versus galactic extinction, for instance, for any type of supernova.
And even with time, doing a time sequence of
Yeah, exactly, because there are various processes that eliminate the sodium D, including sodium D emission.
Is this a single slit, diaphyl?
Single object,
Okay.
single slit and eshell,
Okay.
but very sharp eshell edges. It's called Z-shooter. But if anybody comes up with any ideas, I really need some before the science review.
Any other topics? Happy to change topics. We have a couple minutes. Oh, no, I guess we don't.